It's evident that he cares. What do you care about? Welcome to the Rock Newman Show. It's the Rock Newman Show.
Greetings. Welcome to the Rock Newman Show 2.0 again. I'm Rock Newman, and it is my joy to be here. And once again, you see me smiling here because I am able to do something that I've wanted to do for quite some time. There would be no Rock Newman Show. There would be no Rock Newman Show 2.0. There would be no YouTube channel if it weren't for Avisjay Savisti, who is my friend, who is my business partner, who is the producer and the editor of the Rock Newman Show 2.0. I have found Avis to be an extraordinarily fascinating individual since the time I met him back in 2013, right here in this studio when I first started the Rock Newman Show. That was 2013. We became friends. He became an incredible supporter of what I was doing, and has been producing this show in a way that has given us a platform to touch a lot of lives. And has never been one to seek the limelight. He has been extraordinarily comfortable in the behind-the-scenes role, and I've been harassing him. to do an interview. Let's go on together, and he resisted until today. But today, I want to introduce you to Rock Newman Show 2.0 guest Avisjay Savisti. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I love you, man.
Love you too, brother.
I love you. You know what? I'm going to go somewhere far. You didn't think I would start like this, but I'm doing it for a particular reason. As we have rode many miles together, hung out, working, dinner, whatever it might be, something that I've noticed is that if I'm gonna guess that Earth, Wind, and Fire is your favorite.
Absolutely.
Is your favorite group.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't think you ever said Earth, Wind, and Fire is my favorite group.
Absolutely.
But I see the way you respond. Just recently, we were at my best friend's home, and he has quite a record collection, as in thousands of records and tapes and 45s and all the rest. And when he played certain songs, again, I just kind of watched from a distance. You and he, my friend Bernard Brooks, were more engaged in the conversation than I was, but I looked at it. So now that we got that established, that Earth, Wind, and Fire is your favorite group of all time.
Absolutely.
Why?
Earth, Wind, and Fire for me were pretty much like the male figures in my life. When I first started coming into music, and music was my friend. I was the only child living in Philadelphia.
And let me ask you said the male friends.
The male older figures in my life. They were like my elders. They were like, you know, the voice of reasoning, you know. And so when people talk about the power of music, you know, and how music can and what kind of thing it can impress on somebody, that's very close to me because I know what it did for me. So I know, you know, when I hear this type of music versus the type of music I grew up off, there's definitely a difference there. But Earth, Wind & Fire for me was, you know, telling you you're a shining star no matter who you are. Keep your head to the sky. Even the whole world is a masquerade. Things like that. Those songs at 8 and 9 years old would just have me contemplating. And just, you know, when there wasn't nobody around, I would just, you know, and that's one thing I respect about Maurice White when he said, if I'm not mistaken, he said he didn't want to make any music that wasn't uplifting. So, you know, when I was listening to that, you know, it was just something that was just powerful. And it kind of shaped where I was going to, you know, how I thought where I was going to go. But the music, just in that whole Philadelphia sound back then, and Philadelphia was a very big part of Earth, Wind & Fire, but the whole musical sound back then was, it spoke to the common man, it spoke to the common black person. One of those songs that probably I reflect on a lot is Diamond in the Back, Some Rooftop.
Yeah.
And in one part it says, because it talks about cars, okay, rap music, they talk about all these things in rap music, but if you listen to the song back then, you know, instead of berating you because you don't have what he has, he says, you may not have a car at all, but remember, brothers and sisters, you can still stand tall. Just be thankful for what you got. Yeah. So, you know, when you seen the guy who had it, he didn't look down on you. You know what I mean? He you know, he had, you know, whatever he had, but he was, you know, he was still part of the community. And he was like, hey, you congratulate him more than was on some type of tip where you was against him.
So make sure that I understand it, and I get what you're saying. That I get what you're saying. Let me relate it here. You've heard me, I know, say many times about the influence and the impact that Muhammad Ali had on me.
Absolutely.
Muhammad Ali helped give me a vision that otherwise I don't know if I would have had any other way to get it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And he caused me to have some aspirations to do something to go way beyond my current circumstances.
Absolutely.
You know, I grew up in a family. My mother at one point worked on an elevator. She was an elevator operator. My dad was a cement truck driver, and all of my brothers were cement truck drivers. You know, especially after Muhammad Ali came into my life through the media, I had always thought, even as a younger kid, I wanted to do something, or I was going to escape those circumstances, those sort of very ordinary circumstances, and there's nothing wrong with what I love. They gave me all the love. It's fine, you know. But I had a little bit of a dream, but Ali helped shape it for me.
Absolutely,
you know, helped give me some direction. So, was it the same kind of impacts, the similar impact with Earth, Wind & Fire?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, with Earth, Wind & Fire, I mean, I knew all their lyrics. I remember one time I wanted to meet them to challenge them and see if they knew as many songs as I knew. And, you know, I knew all their lyrics. It was just powerful. It was just very, very powerful. And how it, you know, the message was very important for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it was more, the air then, it was just a whole different type of air, the possibilities, and, you know, even though it didn't have all the technology that we have today, but the air of possibility and how things can be. Of course, back then, at that time, Philadelphia was a raging Nation of Islam area, town. So all those things were going on at the same time, man, and it was just very, you know, it had a strong impression on me, and how I looked at things, and how I hoped with us, you know, when I used to get with people in my neighborhood, like, hey, let's come together and do things, and, you know, it definitely shaped how I thought.
So, you know, this would sound like sacrilege, the way you love Earth, Wind & Fire. I liked Earth, Wind & Fire.
Right.
But it was like, you know, we're about 15 years
We're about
apart.
13. I think you're 13 years old.
Yeah, okay. So I'm a little older. So if I had that kind of feel passionate about performers, I'm Otis Redding and
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
James Brown and
Oh,
Gladys
absolutely,
Knight. I mean, I had
absolutely.
the biggest crush on Gladys Knight and her just gorgeous
And
lips.
but for,
And so my favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire song came as just simply liking it. I don't even know all the words, but it's Maurice White singing, not Maurice White,
Philip Belly.
Philip Bailey singing Reasons.
Right.
Now, I can't quote all those lyrics, and I'm not even sure what the message was. So do me a favor, to the extent you can, what was the message in Reasons? What was that about?
Well, when Reasons first came out, most of us thought it was a love song, but I've watched an interview with Philip Bailey probably about 20 years ago, and he said it's actually about a one-night stand. So it's actually about somebody, the impulse of wanting to be with somebody so bad, and then after you do it, then the impulse is gone. And so that's how, when you think of how that song ends, that's when they're talking about how the reasons why has all disappeared. Because we done did the do, and.
Oh, wow.
So that,
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, Philip Belly was saying, he said, I don't know why everybody loved, play this song at a wedding, but it's about a one-night stand.
Yeah, man. It's like, because it's so beautiful. I mean, just the wording in his singing is so beautiful. I swear to God, man, I did not know that. Now, I don't know if this is asking you like which one of your kids you love the most, but is there one song that if you had to choose, you would choose?
And it was a B song, On Your Face. On Your Face. It talked about uplifting, and it talked about people feeling down. It was more about an anti-depression type song. And a lot of people don't realize, like Earth, Wind & Fire, when they first came out, and we talking a lot about Earth, Wind & Fire, but Earth, Wind & Fire, they were more like a gospel group. So they were contemporary gospel for the most part when they first came out. And so a lot of that, the brother Donnie Simpson, he plays some Earth, Wind & Fire before.
What's that
gospel.
B-side song again?
On Your Face.
On Your Face.
Yeah.
I mean, did it ever get airplay?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. On Your Face. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what you've done is you talked about their importance. Maybe or maybe not, they would have had that kind of importance had you had more male figures in your life. In your life.
That's true.
And so, to some extent, then, they kind of took the place of that, or you sought sort of in them
and that's
what you felt you were missing?
Well, one of the things is growing up, I had a unique, my mother, ninth grade, educated from Florida, came to Philly to try to meet with the rest of her family. She pretty much really told me, differently from how a lot of people are probably being raised today, she always told me, you need to listen to these older men. And she knew she couldn't do what she wanted to do as far as raising me to be the man she wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. So she always encouraged me to listen to listen to older men and listen to, when men talking, it's almost like a Dick Gregory thing. You need to be quiet when men talking. You need to sit there and listen and learn. Mm-hmm. And so that's what. So it was a lot. Earth, Wind & Fire, the message, but definitely, like you said, performing. It was others that were performing, but it was just so much message in the music back then, and so it would those voices definitely had an effect.
Did you grew up more impoverished than not?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
And while you were growing up that way, did you recognize it then, or do you look back on it now and say, "Man, we was poor
I didn't
as
even
hell"?
know it. I didn't even recognize it. And we were. What they say, we couldn't even afford the OR. We was poor. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it was community. Karen White, who was not the singer but the actress, Karen White. She lived four houses down the street. Mm-hmm. I know her brother Mike. Her sister Kimberly and Terry, we all used to go to church together. Karen, she was on there with Jada Pickett on on the TV show Different World. It's
Okay.
a different world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And her and Jada Pinkett played. I think they were in the cafeteria. Yeah, Cameron was on Malcolm and Eddie. She was on Malcolm and Eddie also. And so we grew up together. And I moved from there from when I was around 9 because I was becoming.
Moved from there, but not from.
Not from Philadelphia.
You were
because I was becoming a little. I got in trouble with the law when I was 8. So
what doing what?
busting some people windows and stuff.
Busting some people's windows. Okay.
I mean, the gang culture and all that was going on really big back then, and so I had to. You had to grow up. You had to grow up. I remember.
Did you join a gang or no?
I knew some high level gang members, and they wouldn't let me join. And matter of fact, a friend of mine who's a neighbor, interestingly enough, he lives near me from the same area, and he said, "It's people still remember you from back then. That's that he know." He said, hey, "There's some people still that still remember you." So my mother got me out of that area and put me into another area. So we moved around in Philadelphia.
You mentioned that the Nation of Islam was prominent.
Oh, absolutely.
In Philly when you were there.
Huge. I went to I think it was, I don't know which mosque. I think it was number 7. But I went to the mosque a couple of times. It was Nation was all around me. And I think one of the things white supremacy became very apparent, very clear, crystal clear. I knew nothing about it until I had to be taught lines and don't cross this street. This is your area. You stay in this area. I couldn't go to the local playground. Matter of fact, it was after I moved in the 80s, I think there was an incident where a white gentleman got on a roof and shot 2 people because they was fighting over the playground.
Were you in Philly while Frank Rizzo was the mayor?
I was yes. I was in Philly when Frank Rizzo was mayor.
When did you leave Philly?
I left and went into the military in '83. No, matter of fact, Valentine's Day '84, I went into the military, and that's when
What?
So a lot of areas that's popular in Philly now, a lot of kids that live there don't know. Those are areas were new to me because you couldn't go there.
Folks, I'm talking to my friend and business partner and producer and the backbone of the Rock Newman Show 2.0. He grew up in Philadelphia, as you just heard him say. Anything come to mind about what I'm going to call the terroristic reign of Frank Rizzo? I hated that bastard.
Oh, Frank Rizzo ruled with a. People talk about white supremacy and it was definitely a group effort. I mean, we used to have little white kids chase us all the time. I remember I used to have looking at white men that used to look like they wanted to beat my mom up and be helpless and know you was a little kid and just be scared for her all the time. I remember one time an insurance man came and he looked around in our house and he put his feet up on our table. And my mom said, "Could you please put your feet down?" And he looked around and kind of grabbed his coat and put his feet down. So it was in your face.
How old were you?
I was about 8. It was in your face.
Did you have any real feelings behind that?
I didn't understand it. I mean, but it was definitely established in my mind the haves and have-nots. And, and they were, I didn't understand why the kids didn't like me. And so, people talk about, oh, it's you. People are like, no, just like the minister said, you might as well stamp "Made in America" on my back. They made it apparent, like, this is our area. You're not welcomed here, and so those things became very apparent. But I like to say, I was raised in Philly, but I like to say I grew up here in D.C.
Well, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that, but it's a fascinating Philadelphia story. Did you, while you were there, what age did you leave Philly?
18.
You were 18. Up until that time, did you have the wherewithal to go, the money, one, and then what you felt like was the license to go to Pat's or Geno's, the steak and cheese?
No.
What? Not the money, or you just?
No, you couldn't go in those areas.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
because you were black. You couldn't go. I mean, that's a misconception, and it got popular. I think Boys to Men, the singing group made them kind of popular. But when I was a kid, you could. Oh no, you went down that area. You had to, especially the kids today that had their pants drooping down. Oh, you had to have your shoes tight, your laces tight, and your pants, tucked in real nice. You could not go down there at all.
That's white folks.
That was deep in the danger zone. Mm-hmm. Deep in the danger. Geno's is, oh my gosh, no. Yeah. I probably wouldn't make it out of there. It was definitely a sundown area. If the sun was down.
Explain that, because some people who are looking might not understand what sundown area is.
Oh, I mean, if they let me go through there at night, daytime, that would probably be with a pass. But I definitely couldn't go through there at night. Matter of fact, there was.
Because you get your butt beat, or you expect to get
or
hurt
worse.
or something.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely was coming out of there. Yeah, you was gonna get your run on. Absolutely. You couldn't do that when I was a kid.
So did you feel more a sense of hurt about that, or that's just the way it was?
That's the way it was. That was, Italian mafia was all over the place. My uncle was a little bit into it. I remember one time we was riding in an area. Matter of fact, we was riding in an area. I was with Karen's brother, and we was riding through a white area, and we thought we riding bikes, we can just ride on through.
Yeah.
And some white kids came chasing us, and an old white man, Italian man, told him, leave him alone, and he told us to come over. Uh-huh. And we didn't live too far from like the mob scene, and plus the black mafia scene. I lived not too far from Point Breeze, which where the black mafia was. And he said, where you guys going? And we said, we're going to Locust, Locust Avenue, because my friend's mother worked at a bank there. He said, well, I'm gonna allow y'all to go through there. Like, we had to get his permission,
Where exactly did you live?
I lived on 21st and Mountain Street, which was
Y'all know anything about that, Philadelphia people? 21st and Mountain.
and Mountain Street, yeah. And I went to McDaniel's. They know McDaniel's Elementary, and so we used to just kids just trying to like the Fat Albert thing. That was the hot popular thing then. We just kids, and you could not. He gave us permission, and he said, as long as you don't throw anything or do anything, vandalizing, I'll allow you to go through them. So we had to get his permission, but that's not the only place. I had to get walked around with another guy who was a schoolmate, a white guy, and I was going to walk him home, and he had to walk me into his neighborhood and walk me out, and then we got to a certain.
That was at what age?
That was junior high, so that was about 12. Okay,
so you're 12 years old. You're living in the city. You're a handsome dude, man. How about girls?
I didn't know anything about them.
Really?
Yeah, I went to an all-academic school, so
he never even thought about a girl.
I never knew anything about him.
This is a message that's going. Hey, Vina, he ain't never known nothing about a girl till he seen you. Man, you left in '84. The Moog.
Oh, Move.
The Move fiasco. The disaster.
I think it happened in '85.
Oh, so that was.
But I was familiar with Move. Move was already running. I was there when Move. I had that house.
Talking about the Move organization, which got firebombed. Mayor
Wilson Good.
Firebombed them. I'll never forget hearing Minister Farrakhan speak shortly after that, and he was talking about how black politicians were so doing the bidding of their white masters. Mm-hmm. And I never forget that speech, man. He said that Wilson, and Wilson Good came out and made a statement that he would do it again. And I remember minister saying he said he would do it over and over and over again. I think the minister might have said very publicly that someone that would kill black people like that under those circumstances and situations, knowing that there were kids, women, and the rest, was worthy of death. That was a one hell of a stain on
Philadelphia.
On Philadelphia.
And I remember, just like, pretty much how members of grassroots today are arguing, that back then it was just a push. You better vote. This is the first black man. You better vote. You better vote. And, we didn't know anything about no politics or what his value system was or anything like that. And we were just all pushed to vote.
Yeah.
And so we voted. And I really think he because the system was still pretty much a very polarized, very racial area. So I think he just went along with it and took the blame. I really, I don't, it's not far-fetched for me to believe that that's something that they did and he just said, I'm just going to take it.
So one of the things that I found out, not until I was really like 30 years old. I grew up Brandywine, Maryland. There was white people and there was black people. There's another segment there. There was light-skinned people. Right. And some of the light-skinned people made it a real point to let you know that they were different. They call themselves we sorts. In other words, we sort is different than your sort, whether you're white or black. We sort. So that's all I knew. I didn't know anything about Jewish, Polish. So when I started representing, I came to Howard, the black Mecca,
right?
The black Mecca. Wasn't no kind of, national. I just didn't know nationalities. When I started representing Dwight Braxton, who was from Camden, New Jersey, called the Camden Buzzsaw. One of the first things that happened was there was a deal that we were doing for Michael Spinks, for him to fight Michael Spinks. And the lawyer I got was Mike Traynor, who was the lawyer for Sugar Ray Leonard. And at some point, I'm thinking, okay, white, lawyer. Right. So I say, Mike, you Jewish, right? And he was like, hell no, I'm Welsh. I'm of Welsh descent. And I was like, oh, he said, well, why would you say that? Frankly speaking, he responded in a way that gave an indication that he was insulted by the question. Okay, all right, I'll just leave that there. But Dwight's brothers were absolute knuckleheads. Mm-hmm. And they were in and out of Camden, over into Philadelphia and all that. And so one day they said, yeah, we got in a fight with some Polacks. So I was like, how you know that they were Polish? And it was like, well, where they lived. That they Polish if they lived at a certain point. I'm telling you, man, and to my audience, I did not know those kind of ethnic or differences where somebody was Italian or Irish or Polish or whatever. I just did not know. But you being from there, I'm assuming then, you knew the distinctions early on.
Right. Yeah, it was very much black and white. It really didn't. It really didn't have any. You didn't know like their ethnic.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was just if they were white. It was a group thing. And you stayed out of their areas.
Yeah. So you left and went in the military.
Went in the military.
Tell me about that experience.
I went to a squadron, VF-211, which was the number one squadron. We like to say the number one squadron in the world at the time. F-14 squadron. F-14.
So Air Force?
No, Navy.
Oh,
Navy. I was an NAS Miramar.
Can you swim?
No, yeah, I can swim. I can swim. As a matter of fact, we had to do swim quals.
Black people don't swim.
Yeah. Yeah, I was there when they did Top Gun the movie. So I had a chance to see. I didn't see Tom Cruise, but I seen Val Kilmer running around. Some of our pilots did some of the flying. So going back to the childhood thing, one of the things I used to do is I used to always I begged my mother to get some encyclopedias, and so because there was no internet. So encyclopedias was our internet.
Yeah.
And she got the encyclopedias. I know she didn't pay them off because back then it was the trust thing that was going on. So I had some encyclopedias, and when I wasn't running the streets, I would pick a book, and I would just go through the book. I would pick a letter. Pick a letter I didn't, and I was a lover of cars and stuff like that. So I dreamed about cars and jet engines, and so the automobile book, the A book, and the R book, and the J book were the ones who got the most action because I still remember stuff about cars and jets today from the encyclopedia. And so I wanted to go into an air, deal with airplanes and stuff. So I got fortunate enough where I got into F-14 Squadron, which was the #1 F-14 Squadron. And I was there when they did Top Gun the movie, which we thought it was going to be a comedy. We didn't know it was, because Top Gun was never known for what people see it being, how the movie portrayed it. Top Gun was known for, matter of fact, it was a place that was there, it was one of those things, like if they're worried about retention, so they say, hey, they give you an opportunity to go to Top Gun if you sign back up, because people were known at Top Gun to go to work at 10 and get off at 2.
What was your duty? What did you
I worked in one of the most dangerous things. I was a plane captain, and I used to take a plane captain.
Plane captain.
Yeah, and I used to take care of the jets. I had my name on the jet, and it's almost everything when that thing could kill you. So it was a lot of self-reflections, dealing with the jets. Even the tires. I couldn't even get into the parts because I know the audience be like, what is he talking about? But it was really, really dangerous, and it was
So plane captain, did that mean you were responsible for
a
particular
plane? A plane, yeah, you were responsible for a plane. And I had got to the point where I was responsible for 2. I was the only one responsible for 2. So I had 2 jets I was taking care of. And that was one of the things too. This is when hip hop started coming out, and I was in Southern California, and
San Diego or
San Diego. I was in AS Miramar, San Diego, and I wanted to get out, and they wanted to retain me. And I remember my evals. I had a situation go on with my evals. And
that mean evaluation?
Evaluation.
You talking
military jargon.
You talking shop talk?
Yeah. So when they don't want to retain you, I mean, when you don't want to stay, they kind of make it sure in your evals that he's not somebody. We're not mad that he's gone. That he wasn't he's not really a high tier seller. So I was mad at that because I was like, hey, I was almost in charge of everything I was doing.
Right.
And so I remember distinctively, and I tell people to this day, I remember when my lieutenant, he was like, you either stay or you go. And he said, this is the white man's Navy, and if you don't like it.
True words?
Oh, this is what he told me, yeah. He told me, and we was just by ourselves, because they wanted to keep me, and I didn't want to stay.
Yeah.
And he was saying, you either get with the program, because this is the white man's Navy, you either shape up or ship out. And I told him I want to ship out.
Did you want to go because you saw something else, or you?
I wanted to get into music. I wanted to get into music, and you couldn't do that because music was really, really, really exploding. In the West Coast, because it was already doing big things in the East Coast, and it was really exploding in the West Coast. So I wanted to get into music, and I knew I couldn't do that in the military.
Did you want to perform, sing, write? What did
I really
you
just wanted to produce. I wanted to produce. I wanted to get in any way I could have, but I wanted to produce.
Get in where you fit in.
I wanted to get in where I fit in, yeah. But mostly produce, and saving up money to get instruments and stuff like that. So I knew I couldn't do it while I was in the military.
So did you do 4 years? So 4 years? Right?
I did 3. I did 3, and then I did 3 reserve.
So you were 21 when you actually got 21, 22.
Right. Well, I moved here after my 3 years, so I was 21 years old when I moved to DC. In February 14th, the same time I arrived into the military.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Any one thing that's most memorable about your time in the military?
Wow. Other than him telling me it is the
It's
white man's
man's
Navy.
It's the white man's Navy.
It's the white man's Navy. The most memorable time, probably just the planes. I remember I was in love with the planes. You know, F-14 was the premium plane at that time, and what was interesting is that I knew so much about that plane. It was so regular.
Right.
And that probably was one of the most more interesting things about it, because I had just got so comfortable with this. I think it's a $40 million plane or something like that.
Wow.
You know, so, and I used to just look at them and be amazed about them. But, you know, they became very common to me after a while.
So you got out. When did you come to the D.C. area?
Right when I drove from San Diego to Washington, D.C., because I didn't want to go back to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I met a young lady, and she was from D.C. So I said, hey, instead of going back to Philly, because I had learned some
Bad habits.
yeah, well, yeah. Okay. Well, not no bad. I probably left some bad habits from Philly, and I knew I was a little bit more mature to go back to where I came from in Philly, to go back to my old neighborhood. So I said, hey, let me go to D.C., and then I happened to move into D.C. when it was murder capital. So it was like, it was like, you know, it really didn't matter. But I mean, D.C. was very, very interesting to me. Matter of fact, growing up in Philly, you know, having the Philly sound being so prominent as far as with black culture, you know, I never went anywhere where I met so many people that played instruments like I did in D.C. I mean, I just never understood why D.C. didn't blow up like that, and it was just so many people, you know. And and of course we get into my meeting with Mr. Chuck Brown.
Oh, I wanted to bring that up. I made a note.
You know,
I made a note because I've just heard you over time talk about there was something really special about meeting Chuck. What was that?
Well, the thing was, I had worked at the Ebony Inn. I was DJing at the Ebony Inn, and you know, everybody knew Chuck. Chuck was very familiar to a lot of people. Yeah. So growing up in Philly, you really didn't meet the artists, even though the sound was everywhere. Yeah. You know, so and Chuck had just dropped one of his biggest hits, so I was playing it all the time.
What was it?
Oh man, it don't mean a thing.
Oh,
if they ain't got to go swing.
Yeah, go swing.
Yeah. So he had just dropped that, and so I was playing that all the time. And then he one day he came over there to the Ebony Inn.
And you were doing what?
I was out in the parking lot.
I'm saying, what job?
I was DJing.
DJing. Okay.
I was DJing. Okay. But sometimes I would throw Chuck's song on because it was like 12 minutes long, and I would go out in the parking lot. And so Chuck pulled up, and a friend of mine, I was like, man, is that Chuck Brown? And so he was like, yeah, you want to meet him? And I was like, man, he don't want to meet anybody like me. You know, so, you know, didn't really feel that highly of myself. So he talked to Chuck, and Chuck like, hey, you know, I've got things I want to do. You know, I'm going ahead to have a drink, man. I'm just trying to have a drink. He said, man, the guy from Philly, man, you know, he likes your music. He likes your stuff. You know, why don't you go in there and talk to him? So he came over there and talked with me. And it was a life changer. It really, because I never had anyone that really did something with themselves sit and talk with me and tell me about their life. And I can still see his smile in my face today. And so he told me from the beginning. He talked about how he used to rob kids and he said, man, I wouldn't, you know, they would have peanut butter jelly sandwiches. I have just a jelly sandwich. He said, I wouldn't leave him with nothing. I just give him my sandwich, you know. And then he told me about how he was in jail, and he said, man, I was in jail, and we just up there busting it up, just me and him. And you know, and busting it up. And he said, hey, somebody gave me a guitar. I think, he got a guitar. He said, man, I gotta learn this thing. I gotta learn this thing. And he said, let me tell you how Go-Go started. I said, I'm sitting here, I'm with the person who started Go-Go. He just smiled with that gold tooth, just smiled at me. And from then, you know, I remember he told me, hey, why don't you come out? And my son, and I think he was talking about his son that passed away, He said, yeah, my son is in the same thing you went to. You should come and practice with us and all that. And I was like, he's got to be kidding. He's like, you know, never really felt that way. You know, never really felt, you know, like I belonged like that. Like, oh man, that's a whole different type of people. Yeah. You know, and hey, that's my man. That's my man. But it meant in the later on years with Chuck, I moved not too far from him, and I seen him. And I wanted to tell him, you know, hey, do you remember when you sat in the parking lot and rapped with me? Yeah. And all that. And I used to see him, he'd say hi. And he used to like look at me and then, but I was like, I wonder if he remembered me. I wonder if he remembered me. And so he had got sick. And I before they even mentioned he had got sick, I said, you know what, next time I see him, I'm going to say, hey, you know, you really changed. You made a difference in my life just sitting down rapping with me. Yeah. And they said he had got sick. And then next thing you know, I said, well, when he get out of the hospital, I'll let him know when I see him again. Yeah. And then he passed away, and I was crushed. Damn. I was crushed. I was crushed.
That's showing up signal for procrastination. So you met Chuck. He was down to earth. He was regular.
Real dude.
He was an inspiration. You know, I've heard you speak in a way that you mentioned a couple of times, like the black elite.
The black elite, right.
So on the one hand, you got Chuck Brown, who was literally like a hero figure to you.
Absolutely.
Kind of larger than life, that's sitting down, kicking it with me.
Kicking it with
you. What's the black elite issue?
Early in my career, once I was able to afford some internet connections and a computer, I had gotten with a society that was worldwide. It was multicultural, and they were into conspiracies and just things that, you know, anything interesting. You know, they had their own torrent.
Do you share the name?
Conspiracy Central. It was
Conspiracy Central.
Okay. Right, and it was worldwide. And we used to talk about a lot of things. And of course, you know, I was groomed as a young kid to be a Mason, so I already knew something about that a little bit. But so we got a lot into that. And then I started hearing this thing about the black elite, and I was like, you know, who's this? They're like, oh, you never heard of the black elite? And here I am in my early 30s, and I'm hearing about this group. And so I decided to research them. So I researched them, and come to find out, they were created in Philadelphia. And I was like, wow, you know.
So it's an actually organized group?
Yeah, the group, Sigma Pi Phi, was created in Philadelphia. And I tell people about an incident that happened to me in high school when I was late to one class. And my high school was, like I said, was an all academic school. And so our classrooms were like 15, 20 people. It wasn't really big classrooms. So I remember the door being cracked. And I remember walking in there and I seen a white guy, you know, older white man. You know, and he looked at me, and I looked at the people that were in the class, and I'm like, what's going on? I hear this film camera moving. So I'm like, you know, what's going on? You know? So I sit down, I'm watch what they're watching, and I realize that I see these heads and I see these ovens. I'm like, whoa, this is the Holocaust, you know? So I'm like, I'm looking at this, and I'm just checking it out, taking it all in. And so when it's over with, the gentleman closes up his, tidies up his projector and his film and everything. And he says, does anyone have any questions? And so, you know, no one had any questions, but it was really, you know, I was like, wow. You know, it really made this impression on me. And I was just like, I can't wait till my guy show up. And my guy never showed up. You know, I'm like, where's my dude that come in and tell me my history and show me my films of what happened to me? Yeah. And they never showed up. And I really appreciated that, you know, how they took it upon themselves to make sure that their history got out, what happened to
Had
them.
Jewish
Yeah.
elders or
Right.
teachers, whatever.
Or just he wasn't even an elder. He was just they just work as a group, I guess. And he just I'm hit from school to school, and I was like, wow,
And you kind of juxtapose that.
to when the black elite come around, I found out about them some 15 years later. And I'm like, you guys are from the very city I'm from. Where you were started, where was my guy at? And then I come to see these pictures, and you see these pictures, like I always had Jet magazines. So you see Essence and Ebony, and so you would see the Earl Greys and the Vernon Jordans. And it's just like, you guys probably would never give me the time of day. That's how I felt. And
So we're drawing close to when we have to end. We did a recent show with someone that I've, for years, wanted to communicate with, wanted to have his wisdom sprinkled, and that's Neely Fuller. And the majority of the conversation was about his analysis of white supremacy.
right.
And you obviously, we did the show together, so you heard what he had to say. Did any of what he had to say resonate with you in your own personal life?
All of it. I mean, white supremacy is the most destructive weapon ever created by man. It's the most I guess profound religion ever created by man. It's pretty much it's a weapon, and it's really everything he said resonated with me. And I just see, especially as we talk, a big thing today is the black diaspora and just how we maneuver here as black people, and you see in the this God impression they have on white supremacy. How would you say it? I can't think of it.
The emphasis, not the emphasis, the complex?
Yeah, this God complex, right. The God complex. Exactly. The God complex because of white supremacy. And it's like, it seemed like everybody, because if you research whiteness and when, how it began, it wasn't even meant for everyone, and then slowly they start on giving white privilege to other groups, and it's just how you see people, how they approach it and how they look at it. It's like, if somebody's white, you see something, they'll be talking about the same things we're talking about, and they'll get 100,000 views, we'll get 10,000 views. You know what I mean? They say their water is colder, their ice is colder.
Sure.
You'll see that type of situation go on. Or groups that come here, they know the first thing, part of the white supremacy religion, the first thing they have to do is let people know that I'm not with them people. I'm not one of them, or I will stick to the tenets of white supremacy. And so it's a very interesting thing when you look at it from our point of view.
So let me ask you this. 10 years ago, right here in this studio, 1918 Martin Luther King Avenue, WEAC studio, where we produce this show. Right around this time, I might have been in March, I know it was like maybe March or April. It was a little bit after I started doing the show. I had, this before you became formally involved, I had Minister Farrakhan.
Oh.
I remember you barely being able to talk.
Right.
He had such an impact on you. What was it that made you feel So, man, you were just you. It was like your eye. It was like your eyes were wide. Your mouth was open, and I don't think for a minute you actually spoke. What is it about him that had you? I don't think it would be incorrect to say you had like you worshipped him or saw him as a larger than life figure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And here's the crazy thing. I was in San Diego, and I was probably about 19 years old, and I was just talking about us as a people, and they was like, "Man, you sound like Farrakhan." I'm like, "Who was that?" And right then, it started buzzing in my ear because that's when I think Wallace D. Muhammad was. It was a thing going on. He was still running things, or it was a transitional period. So it was kind of, and plus I was in the military, so I didn't really hear a lot about the nation. And then I was just very curious because this was VHS. There was no internet back then, and I think someone gave me a tape. Some years, like 2 or 3 years later, someone gave me a tape of the minister, and I got a chance to hear him talk. And man, I never heard anyone talk so. But I mean, it was everything that we dreamed of when people reminisce on Malcolm and stuff like that. And matter of fact, me and my wife's first date, we sat and watched that video.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Wow.
Of the minister, of the minister. And so, he left an extreme strong impression on me. Definitely. And so, and something to shoot for. And something to shoot for. And that was one of the things I had against the black elite. Like, you didn't give me, you talk about the people of regular people in the neighborhood, young kids in the neighborhood, what they're doing, but you hide yourself. You didn't give me anything to shoot for. These people that's out in the neighborhood, like a Chuck Brown or somebody, he showed me the breadcrumbs on how he becomes him. Right. These, I look at the Earl Graves and these other big cats, and I'm like, how do I do that? You guys never come back to give us, look for, the people that's aspiring to be something. Like, never even gave it any effort, So when I seen him, I was like, man, and someone said I sound like him. I was like, man, I would love to be like have that kind of bravery.
I'm gonna ask you to come back and be my guest again.
Man, I can't believe the hour went by so quick.
So look, to wrap up here. You raised a beautiful family. Your daughter is, Avis has a daughter named Asia. Trust me when I tell you, no one asked me to do what I'm getting ready to do right now. But I'd like for you to give out her information about where somebody can contact her. She right now, after graduating from
SCAD,
from SCAD, what's that called?
Savannah College of Art and Design.
Savannah College of Art and Design. She right now is one of the most brilliant, talented nail technicians in the world. How can people get in touch with her?
Oh, well, they can see her.
Is it a website?
Well, she has
an email address.
Asia the Bird, THABIRD.
Asia, ASIA the Bird.
And Instagram.
At Instagram. Man, look at her stuff, and y'all decide to do whatever you want to do. I'm just telling you, this sister is wicked with her nail designs. Man, thank you, man. This has been.
I want to do another hour.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We got to come back. We got to do this again. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Love you,
brother.
brother.
Love you, man. Yeah. All right.